A-Dub kicked off. The first games of the year were Melbourne versus Sydney. Well, that was the first one on Saturday afternoon. Doogie, talk us through it. What did you see in Melbourne, Sydney?
Melbourne continued their form on from the exhibition game that they had against the Ducks. They were out of the blocks really fast. They were all over Sydney in that first period. I actually thought Sydney did quite well though to sort of minimise a bit of the early pressure from the ice. I felt that the Sirens had done a bit of their homework and they were pushing the Melbourne forwards wide, their wingers, not letting Butler and players like that actually get time into the offensive zone, and they were making it really difficult for them early on. That was sort of what I seen, and it was a really good contest. And the Sirens, they showed a lot of ticket to come back like they did.
Yeah, so I might cop some stick for this, but last year I was pretty. I wasn't sure how the Sirens were going to come out of COVID, and after having lost, players like Amelia Matheson, who was a big part of their defense, having lost Stephanie Cochrane, the captain, to the Melbourne Ice. We should call the Melbourne Ice the Melbourne Sirens. And lost a few other players, and then obviously this season they've lost both goaltenders, Tina Girdler, who represents Australia, and Sarah Dogramache as well. So it's a lot of questions, and losing Shana Godfrey as well to Melbourne. That's pretty huge. So I was surprised that they managed to stick with Melbourne for as long as they did, because on paper you look at that Melbourne Ice roster and there's not a lot of holes.
No, they look stacked. They really do. They look like they run deep as well. The Ice.
Yeah, it's like pick your poison. Those top two lines, like you've the forwards that they have available in the top six, is ridiculous. So it's good for Sydney for matching up.
Like when I was looking at one of the power play units that the Ice were running, and it was Julian, Godfrey, Butler, Moore, Pullen, and you just look at that and you just think, geez, they're just stacked. They've got a power play unit that's just really strong. So they were really impressive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then the Sunday game. So the Saturday game was 6-5. I believe Sarah Edney scored 4 goals for Sydney. She is unreal, Sarah Edney. There was a goal that she scored on the power play on the Saturday game, which I think was textbook switching sides on the power play. She flipped the puck across. I think the commentator mentioned that I think he thought that she was going for like a centering pass, but it was just to flip the play, and three Melbourne Ice defenders or skaters ended up going to that left side of the ice, and then Sarah Edney was able to just skate backdoor for a tap in. Just unbelievable, a good smarts. But you would like to have Sarah Edney not have to do all of the scoring. I think Sydney, you can't this season after losing Godfrey. You're not going to win too many games if you need to score 6.
Yeah, I agree. And it seems like it's only one round, but it seems like there will be some high scoring games too across the league. So, but Edney was unreal. 5 goals, 2 games. You can't ask for much more.
Yeah. We've got Andrew John Egan in the chat. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, very good point about Godfrey. Very impressive skating both ways. Godfrey, I think she collected her 300th point last season or something, AWIHL point last season. She's an absolute weapon. And yeah, it's even the first goal that she scored, which was off the Aparicio shot, and she was just Johnny on the spot for the rebound. Like she knows the game so well. Shana Godfrey. I think JD refers to her as the apex predator. She's just, she's terrific on the ice. Phil Taylor with another comment. 6 seemed to be the popular winner score this round. What do you reckon, Doogie?
Yeah, I agree. Phil's got his finger on the pulse. I just think there's enough scoring power across the league where we're going to see these high scoring games. When it comes to offense, all of the teams, they seem to have 2 or 3 players that can just know where the back of the net is, and they're able to put the puck away. So I'm predicting that these sort of score lines we'll see across the league. I don't think you're going to see many sort of 3-2 games or 2-1 games. I think there will be some high scoring both sides.
Yeah. Well, you've heard it here first. Next week's Melbourne versus Perth games will be a pair of 2-1 games.
100%.
Anything else you wanted to mention about the Sydney Melbourne games before we move on?
Not really. I think it's obviously only the first round. There's a bit of feeling out as well with a bit of change across the rosters. I think they're going to be better for it in the long run. I don't think I don't think you can. It's not like alarm bells after the first round. Oh my God, Sirens are 0-2. I don't think it's alarm bells. I think there's still enough quality there for Sydney, and it's really strange because they're defending champions. It's a weird one when you see them start off 0-2 as defending champions. I don't think people should be worried though.
Yeah, and they've had a coaching change, so it'll take some time for Gabriel Blado in Sydney to be able to get his tactics and messages through. Curtis Clousters, of course, new coach for the Melbourne Ice. So the top 2 teams last season with coaching changes.
And actually, Andrew Egan, he speaks highly of Curtis. So Andrew, who was in the comments before, he's doing his coaching certificates at the moment. So Andrew's getting into coaching, which is good. So, and he was there at a coaching, sort of like a coaching panel, coaching sort of conference type thing. And he speaks highly of Curtis. And from what I've heard after talking to Shana Godfrey, that he's been really good for the ice. Brings a lot of professionalism and different sort of ways of looking at the game.
Yeah.
But one thing actually, before we move on, one thing I did actually like from the weekend was because I'd never actually seen him before, and I don't know if I'm just missing this or they've been around for a while. But those Sirens sweaters that actually had sirens across the front, and it looked like it had the Sydney Harbour, the Opera House skyline. I think they were really nice.
Yeah, it was some players were wearing those, some were wearing the old Sirens jerseys. So a bit of a quilt on the ice. But yeah, we'll see if they continue.